Hello and welcome to the Grove Podcast. This is our first episode. I guess this is the first time I'm saying it. I am one of your co-hosts, Nate Hassan, and next to me I have Nathaniel Duncan. Why don't you say hello, Nathaniel?
Hey, what's going on?
So this is not my first show. I've done podcasts before. This is my third, fourth, I don't even know at this point. I've been guest of other podcasts too, so I'm pretty uncomfortable. I'm pretty comfortable in front of a mic. I've done this a time or two. This, I think, is your first time doing it, correct?
Yeah, this will be my first time being recorded, so I'm excited though.
It's a bit of an adjustment, so just bear with us if we sound awkward, if there's awkward silences. I'll probably edit out if it's too bad, but if you were listening to this, kind of to welcome you guys in, I just want to say thank you. If you're listening to us on Apple or on Spotify, that means we've made it because we aren't posting it there yet. So if it's on YouTube, then you're probably listening to the first episode. So we appreciate you guys listening. Leave comments, like, subscribe, shoot us an email, do whatever you need to contact us. But we love hearing from you guys. So with all of that being said, we already introduced ourselves. A couple questions, I guess. Well, share a bit about yourself, Nathaniel. You're from here, obviously?
Yeah, so I was born and raised here in Columbus, Ohio, so I bleed the scarlet and gray. I've always kind of been a huge Ohio State fan. It's kind of run in the family, and I think my passion for football kind of started when I was younger. My dad was a huge Cowboys fan and Ohio State fan. And so as I became older, I started watching football pretty religiously, and I think I really started following it about 9 or 10 years old. Really looking back to the 2007, I remember us losing to Florida in the national championship game and,
Go Gators.
and crying, being really upset about that. And that's really where I started. I think my love for Ohio State football started was probably around that time. So I guess age, I'm 23 years old. Going to school online for my associate's degree and to become a pastor. But football is probably my other biggest passion. So.
And I already introduced myself. Some of you might be coming over from Nonsensical or Hall Gaming or one of the other podcasts in the network. But I am Nate. I already said that. Nathan, whatever you want to call me, I'll answer to both. Nathaniel. People get Nathaniel and I confused a lot. So we both kind of answer to both names at this point.
We've known each other since we were 6 years old, so it happens.
I'm from Ohio, too. I grew up here. I did spend a good chunk of my time as a kid in Florida, so I am also a Gators fan. I'm actually a Gators fan first, but I will forget about it for this podcast. I am a full-blooded Buckeye, though, so I think my most vivid football memory is probably as a kid just watching Ohio State fight and compete, which you don't really see as much anymore because we kind of destroy everyone in the Big Ten. Yeah. But just as a kid watching the Big Ten, the Penn State whiteout game and thinking like, oh, holy crap, are we going to beat them? Or watching the team up north and seeing like, oh man, like I'm worried about this game. And nowadays it's
not that anymore.
It's like, oh, we're going to beat them by 20 or 30 or
with the exception of like the end of Urban's era when we got blown out by Iowa or the loss to Purdue. Those were like,
and those were still freak accidents.
Yeah, I mean, you don't see that was our worst defense that we've probably had in the last 20 years too. So you don't see that really much anymore.
I didn't ask you this beforehand, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot. But do you have an end goal for this show? I know we both love football, and
yeah, I mean, I think as we started out, it's kind of for our enjoyment and just to kind of share our thoughts and opinions, but. I mean, I've always thought it would be really cool to make this something that, we could do more than just one night a week, or, if it really blows up.
Yeah.
We could make it into something. I don't know if we were able to make some money off of it and really put some time and effort into it. And, you hear and listen to other podcasts, and those guys get to like go to the practices and watch practices and speak with the coaches, and that would be super cool. I would love to do something like that, but. Obviously, that's big time. So, who knows?
That's big brain goal. No, that's kind of long run. For me, I think it's more of I I'm one of those people that'll set a goal that I'm like, okay, I can get this in this much time. Like I can see this path in front of me. So I think for me, my goal is to have a press pass in my hand at some point in the next few years. Even if I'm not making money off of it,
Yeah.
and if I scam my way into it, I want to be, quote, a reporter at an Ohio State game. Even if it's
Sit on
like
the
OSU
sidelines.
hockey or something. Yeah. Just to say like, I'm with the press here.
Start out at track and field and move up to men's volleyball.
Yeah, there we go.
Eventually-
We'll start live tweeting the Ohio State soccer games because they're free.
There you go. Are the volleyball games still free?
They are. Yeah, they started this past week. OSU volleyball.
Yeah.
That's a fun one. You guys listening, if you've never been, Ohio State volleyball is legit. I mean, we're not as good as we were a couple years ago, but when it comes to volleyball, Ohio State dominates men's volleyball, and they're free. They're in St. John's.
They tend to stay relevant in pretty much every single athletic department. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know of any Ohio State sport that really just sucks. Like I feel like they all kind of are able to hang within like the top 25. If Ohio State's not in the top 25 in any given sport, I feel like
We don't have
That's
that
a-
sport.
yeah,
They get rid of it.
at least the main sports. I mean, I don't know how their chess teams do it or anything, but
Oh gosh,
if that even exists,
I have no clue. Well, I guess that's kind of our intro. So why don't we go into some questions? If you guys have questions, we are more than happy to answer them. I have a list in front of me that I came up with over the weeks preparing for this, but if you're listening to this, I would love to get a question from you. And we would love to answer it. So shoot us questions, text us. If you have our phone numbers, email us at, what is it? It's the first time I've read it. So it's thegrovepod@gmail.com. Or if you want to comment on YouTube or something like that, we'll get that as well. So
having some interaction would definitely be really cool for some topics and ideas that we
Yeah.
can kind of.
or Twitter. I guess we use Twitter pretty
Yeah.
often too.
I'm on the Twitter account every day, and
Yep.
I know you're on there pretty frequently as well.
So let's start with we'll talk rivalry. Why not? That's always a fun one to get off with. Here's the first question: when will the team up north win again? Do you have a realistic year? Not even a year. A realistic timeline for when they could possibly even be a favorite?
Never. No. I'm just, I feel like here's my issue with that. I think Jim Harbaugh has done a top 10 job at recruiting up there. I mean, I think that they're pulling in top 10 talent as far as their recruiting rankings every year have been, I feel like, top 10 since he's been there. If not top 5. I mean, he's had pretty excellent recruiting classes. I think the issue is a talent development standpoint. I don't think that they're doing much. Like, for example, Peoples-Jones. Is it Donovan Peoples-Jones? Is
Yeah,
that who it is?
Peoples-Jones for the Browns.
He was the number one wide receiver recruit back in 2000. I don't
It
want
was-
to butcher this. 2015 maybe.
Hold on, let me look it up real quick.
Anyway, while you're looking that up, he was like the number one wide receiver recruit, like big name guy, and they were talking about him coming in, and he basically was like, no one really heard about him for 4 years. And now he's playing preseason games for the Browns, and everyone's like, wow, where was this guy in college? And it's like
2017.
2017, okay.
Class of
So he was
2017.
there for 3 years, and
Yep.
probably just wanted to get out of there because that team. You won't hear us actually say their name very often. You'll probably hear us just refer to them as the team up north. So if you're an Ohio State fan, you know what we're talking
Or
about.
Michigan.
Or Michigan, yeah. Just can't say the M. But I don't think they're developing players. So I would say, I mean, if Harbaugh wants to be there long term, he's going to have to get some, not only guys who can recruit, but guys who can develop their players to the point where they're going to be able to compete with Ohio State. Because they've had a couple close games in the last 6 or 7 years, but Urban was 6-0, 7-0, and Ryan Day is we'll call it 2-0 because I think Michigan kind of I just said it. I think they kind of forfeited and got lucky with the COVID rules there.
Where we have interesting. No, they're not even interesting. We have political beliefs that not everyone might agree with. So
Yeah.
we'll probably shy away from.
We won't talk about that, but
go
I
listen to
guess
Nonsensical if you want to talk about
answering
that.
the actual question that it was, I I don't foresee it being something that happens in the next 3 to 4 years. I think that they're going to have to change something. I think it's going to have to be a culture change or a staff change. I don't even know if Harbaugh's the guy. I mean, obviously he's had proven success in the NFL, but we don't really know. I mean, from a college football standpoint, he hasn't. You gotta beat Ohio State if you want to win a national championship. So I mean, if you heard him in his last interview, he was like, we're gonna beat Ohio State
or die.
Basically, it's like,
or die trying.
When's your funeral? when is that gonna happen? So I don't think it's gonna be in the next 3 years. I think you're looking 4 to 5 years if it happens. I mean, as Ohio State fans, we don't want to see that happen.
Yeah. See, here's my problem, and I definitely agree with everything you just said. Jim Harbaugh is not the coach to beat Ohio State. Yeah. He's great at recruiting. He's a freak at recruiting. I mean, you've seen the pictures of him shirtless and staying the night at kids' houses, which is weird. But he is not going to beat Ohio State. There's, like Nathaniel said, there's something lacking, and I think it is that development because they get high-level recruits. They're, I think, in the same boat with Florida State where they're recruiting at such a high level and they're just falling off a cliff when it comes to performance. I mean, they won 2 games last year. Is that right?
I don't.
20. Well, I mean, it was a pandemic year, so I think they only played like 6 or 7 total. But I'm pretty sure they only won 2 games, and they lost to Rutgers, right?
Yes.
If you lose to Rutgers, there's a problem.
2 and 4. 2 and 4. They were at the bottom of the Big Ten East.
Yes, which is unheard of.
Rutgers had a better record than them, and Michigan State was pretty much tied with them, but I'm pretty sure Michigan State beat them.
I think they did beat them head to head.
They beat them, which is really sad. I mean, and Indiana looks great. So, I mean, if we're talking about college football, I mean, this next upcoming season, I mean, Indiana is going to be a team to look out for as well.
Yeah, I think so. I guess putting a number on it, I think this is kind of a final test for Jim Harbaugh this year. Even if he wins every other game and doesn't beat Ohio State, I think Michigan will try and find a way to part ways with him. Whether that's, hey, you did a great job here, you did a good thing, your contract expires, we're not going to renew it, probably start looking for other jobs. Or whether that's, hey, Nick Saban wants to come coach, get out of here. Isn't going to happen. But
I mean, I think in order for them to kick him out for another coach,
it would have to be a high-level coach.
A Dabo Sweeney, a Lincoln Riley, or maybe you see somebody like, I don't know, someone
Fickle.
who has success.
Fickle wouldn't do it because he's an Ohio guy.
No, he wouldn't go, but that kind of coach, like
someone
Scott
like that,
Frost
yes.
or a Luke Fickle who's been at a lower level school. Like, I mean, Cincinnati will probably be top 10 this year, but
well, they're ranked. So what is it, 8 in preseason?
Yeah, they're pretty high, but I don't foresee their ceiling. I don't foresee their ceiling being a team that can compete with your blue bloods like comes in Ohio State and Alabama.
Yes. Now going from that question when they're going to win again. Anyways, I said a number. I'm sorry. I'm thinking 20. What is it? This is the 2021-22 season. I would say the next time they get Ohio State might be mid to late 2020s. So 2025, 2027. Probably somewhere in that range because I think Harbaugh will be gone and their next coach will have a year or two to develop kids to the point where they could beat Ohio State.
Yeah.
Which, that's where my next question was going. Is the rivalry fading? That's a loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it from an entertainment value standpoint and you look across media and what other people are saying about the rivalry, like, obviously, Ohio State fans and that team up north fans are going to always say, like, this is the rivalry. And if you look at really from the beginning of college football, there's no other rivalry that has compared to this. Obviously, Ohio State's been dominant in the last 20 years between the Tressel, Urban, and Ryan Day eras. So I would say from the entertainment and like really competitive side, at least in the last 6 or 7 years, I think it is to an extent. Do I think that will continue? No. I think that eventually they're going to make a decision. I don't foresee them extending Harbaugh again if he hasn't beat Ohio State. If he has not beat Ohio State by the end of this contract, I don't foresee them extending him.
When does his contract end?
I thought that he signed a 5-year deal like 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago. So I think they're going to give him to the end of the contract to at least. I mean, I would say he has to beat Ohio State at least once and get to the playoff.
5-year contract. Oh,
it must have been last year then.
Was it of last year?
2020, so he'd be probably through 2025.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, will increase to 4.426 million in 2025. Yeah. Okay, so maybe so if we're assuming Harbaugh stays the length of that, which I don't know he will.
So maybe 2027.
Yeah, I'm thinking more like 28, 29, because that would give the other coach 2 years to develop his guys into juniors.
I mean, that would be Ohio State's longest win streak versus them in the history of the program. They might be. I think this is already the longest win streak, isn't it?
You might be right. I know we're closing in on overall wins. We're within like 2 wins of all time now, or 3 wins all time.
I think it's 3 or 4 wins.
I think it's like 51 to 48, and then there's like 2 or 3 ties.
By 2030, we should have them.
Oh, no question.
Unless Nick Saban comes to the team up north and just, which I don't see why he would do. I mean, he's at the blue blood of blue bloods. I mean, I would say Ohio State and Alabama at this point are probably in a league of their own. Clemson has been able to sustain what they've got under Dabo, but they haven't really had that under anyone else.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's interesting with Michigan too, because they're supposed to be a blue blood. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, you say Ohio State and Michigan to a football fan, and they're like, okay, well, Michigan merch probably sells better because Michigan's a little bit more well-known nationally. Now, that's flipped completely. Ohio State is by far, no question, much higher than Michigan nowadays. But Michigan was one of those schools like Oklahoma, like Alabama, like even like
Notre Dame,
Wisconsin
USC.
back in the day. Yeah, I mean those guys that are known for winning national championships. So everyone knows Michigan. I mean that's why they're still holding on in recruiting rankings. But it shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be this way. And it's, as an Ohio State fan, it's kind of fun to beat the crap out of them once a year.
It is. Also,
as an Ohio State fan, I almost feel bad for them, and it hurts me to say that, but it's like you're looking at a little kid and stealing candy from them. It's like you're kicking a horse or kicking something else. You know what I mean? Like it's
especially when they have a good record and they're facing us. It's like, oh, we just ruined their hopes again. Like, I don't know. Like if they're highly ranked, like you go back to the 2019 season, I think that they were projected to win the Big Ten and they were projected to win the East, and they were projected, and Ohio State was projected to finish 4th in the Big Ten.
2019?
Yeah, Ryan Day's first season. Some people picked Ohio State to go 9-3.
Yeah. That was his first season. That's right.
And Ohio State ended up going undefeated until they played Clemson.
Yep.
So that was last year. 2 years ago. And they were picked to finish on top, and they.
Now the other thing that makes the discussion interesting is the 12-team playoff. I mean,
do you think it will go straight to 12? I feel like it will. I feel like it would go to 8 before it would go to 12.
The problem with an 8-team playoff is that it doesn't. I don't know. It's so the way you look at it. If it's an 8-team playoff, you're saying Big 10, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, all guaranteed a spot in. Because those are the big 4. There's one more. What's the other one? ACC. Thank you. Those 5 are guaranteed spots. Then you get 2 at-larges, and you get the 3rd spot, which is your best group of 5 team, is what most people are projecting that would be. 12-team playoff, you would get the same thing, with the only exception of there being more at-large teams.
Would it be a 4-4 play in the top 4 teams?
Yes, it's basically an 8-team playoff, but the top 4 teams get to skip the first week. So that's what most people are proposing, to give a reward to the teams that
have finished.
It gives you an incentive to win your conference and not just.
The only thing that I mean, from an Ohio State perspective, that's great. I think that Ohio State benefits from that every year.
Yeah.
From a top 5 team, like those, your
borderline,
your AAC, your what is that, American Athletic Conference? So your
MAC,
your Mountain West,
Sunbelt.
Your MAC, or your Sun Belt. Yeah, those teams are gonna have to win three tough games. They're gonna have
but if you think about it, a 12-team playoff, I mean,
It gives them a
Last year,
chance.
Cincinnati would have been in. Coastal Carolina probably would have been borderline because the end of the season they were ranked like 13, I think.
Yeah.
And there was maybe one more that was close. UCF was up there for a minute.
Yeah, I would say UCF and Cincinnati are the
Last
teams
year they
in
weren't
recent
good,
memory
but-
that come to my mind. Like those are the teams that could have benefited from that.
But anyways, what I was starting to say is that's gonna be interesting for Michigan, even an 8-team playoff, because at the moment, unless they beat Ohio State, there's no way they're making the playoffs because they have a loss on their record and they're not going to the Big Ten championship game.
And the other
because
issue
they're on the same side of the Big Ten
their,
as us,
their matchup is the last regular season game of the year.
which makes them look worse.
Other than last year, it would have been not that. But you can't. And I mean, unless they're just absolutely unbelievable, the first 11 games of the season.
Yep.
And then
you
to
play them
Ohio
close
State
and
in
lose by
close
a
game.
field goal or something.
If you expand it.
And I mean, even then, you're still hoping that the next runner-up has at least definitely one loss. You can't have an undefeated team.
Yeah.
And you're hoping that it's a 2-loss team or a 1-loss team with a couple of close games or something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's hard for.
But I think it does benefit them a lot, and I think that'll at least help the rivalry a little bit. But I don't know. It's interesting to think about their future, especially with everything going on.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always something to talk about, especially with how dominant. You see that account on Twitter that's like 3,000 some hundred days since
the count
since
or
they
whatever.
beat Ohio State, and you're like, how far is this gonna go? 10,000 days? I don't know.
Yep. Okay, so I guess moving on from rivalry talk. Well, we'll stick with it. We're already this far along. We might as well just finish the episode out with it. Who would you consider other rivals for Ohio State?
Conference or
just give me like 5 names you would consider.
Well,
no explanation, just 5 names.
All right. Penn State, Clemson. Penn State, Clemson. And we're not talking about that team up north. We're not including them.
No, not including Michigan.
Okay. Wisconsin. I know that's tough because there's not really a whole lot of teams in the Big Ten that'll compete with Ohio State. I feel like
I wasn't just talking Big Ten either.
Okay.
Because I mean, like if I had to list 5 off the top of my head, I would agree. Clemson, Penn State, Wisconsin. I would probably throw Alabama in there just because we're at the top tier of college football and we play them every year, so it's getting to be the point where it's a rivalry. And then if I had to pick one more, maybe Notre Dame, just because of the history between us. But
it's hard for me. I mean, I'm thinking, I guess, in the recent years, but I mean, definitely Penn State, 100%, Clemson, 100%, Wisconsin, 100%. You could make a case for Northwestern because we've been matched up with them in the Big Ten championship a couple times.
Technically, the Illinois game has a rivalry trophy.
That's true. The Illabuck. I don't really get any special feeling after
trophy.
winning that every year. It doesn't mean anything to me. But if Illinois were to win it, they'd probably be on cloud 9.
They're a dark horse this year.
I mean, we've played Alabama twice in the last 5 years, and we won one and they won one. So I mean,
since the playoff era is kind of in my head the cutoff.
I mean,
we've played them enough to consider them a rival. And it's been tight games, and there's been a lot of crap talk, and there's been. I mean, for a while it was Urban Meyer versus Nick Saban, 2 of the greatest coaches of all time. Yeah. Now it's Ryan Day, the young guy, against the old blue blood coach.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I wouldn't say it's as much of a rivalry as Clemson, just because.
No.
But if you want to put a 5th team on there, and considering Ohio State, Alabama, and I mean Clemson too, but those are your consistent top 5 teams every year. I'd get on board with that.
It's just, I mean, Ohio State's rivals. If we're talking about the rivalry between Michigan fading, you have to start considering that at some point Ohio State fans are going to be more excited for other games, which is kind of sad to say because I love watching that game every year. But I mean, the last 5 years, how hype have Ohio State fans been to see Penn State play, especially when it's at Penn State and it's the whiteout.
Those games have been
it's nerve-wracking, but it's
I almost died,
some of the most entertaining things to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't had an entertaining game against Michigan since 2016.
The one-handed catch in overtime, right?
2016.
It was
the Curtis Samuel triple overtime.
Was it Curtis Samuel that it was?
Yeah, it was Curtis Samuel. The run into the end zone.
Yeah,
his arms up in the air.
yeah.
That was the last really close Ohio State-Michigan game. And I mean, in the last 3 years, we've had 2 thrillers against Penn State. In the last 5 years, I mean, you remember the one when Joey Bosa knocked the lineman into what was his name? I can't remember their quarterback that year. Sean Clifford's their quarterback now. I can't remember who it is.
I can't think off the top of my head.
He never did
I know who
anything
you're talking about.
in the NFL, but he knocked the guy into him, and then you have the 2 insane comebacks. The one where J.T. Barrett throws it to Marcus Ball in the end zone.
Yep.
And then the K.J. Hill touchdown where they were down. I think Benjamin Victor had a touchdown first, where he kind of just crazy slanted across the field, and then K.J. Hill had the run up the right side of the end zone, and yeah. I mean, Penn State, I look forward to that game probably more. And then there was the Saquon year where Saquon opened it up. And
that's true. That was a really interesting, yeah.
That may have been that game. That may have been one of those 2 games. But anyway, I mean, I still always look forward to that feeling of playing them, but it just hasn't been as exciting. I mean, I'm okay with us beating the brakes off of them every year. It doesn't bother me. But every once in a while, it is nice to have an exciting game.
Yeah.
Not if they're not ranked, but
you mentioned special teams, and this popped into my head. Did you see the news as of today? We're recording August 19th.
The long snapper that's no longer with us.
So Ohio State
McCullough.
Today, I can't remember. Yeah, McCullough's the last name. He kind of stepped away from football. I think it was an off-field injury or something like that. But
I don't think he was scholarship. I think he was non-scholarship, so he was working.
He was. But
it was his shoulder or something.
The thing that's interesting about that is we have our veteran guy who's fine, no issue with him. His backup now is an untested walk-on freshman. So say our long snapper gets hurt, Ohio State's not going for a field goal on any 4th downs the rest of the season. And we'll probably be fine doing that too until we get to the playoffs.
How often do you see a long snapper get hurt?
Yeah, I mean, it's most special teams units aren't trying to.
I mean, and with the transfer portal, if you're really, really pressed to bring in someone with experience,
you could find someone next year if you really needed it.
Yeah. All right, what's...
So, I mean, I guess we kind of covered that. Actually, we covered our 12-team playoff talk as well.
Yeah, we did.
I didn't even realize that. I guess we can talk a little bit about Justin Fields. So we are entering the NFL season. We're kind of a couple preseason games away, but Justin Fields looked great the other night. Did you watch the game?
I did. I was I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched some highlights and I watched a little bit of the game. I think I watched when he came in the first quarter, right?
Second and third quarter he played, I think.
Okay, second quarter.
For the most of both.
I must have just watched a little bit of the second quarter. I watched his highlights.
I guess I can look up the stats. It was somewhere around 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a very high completion percentage.
I mean, we know what Justin Fields brings. He's super accurate. He's an efficient quarterback. He doesn't really make bad decisions.
He looked like Justin Fields at Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean...
That was what was exciting.
He's super athletic. I mean, he's one of the most athletic quarterbacks that Ohio State's ever had. Maybe other than Braxton Miller or Troy Smith. But just insane accuracy. I mean, his only really disadvantage, maybe he can't throw a deep pass like some guys, but I mean, he can chuck it 50, 60 yards.
I guess I'm wrong. I'm sorry. 142 yards, 1 touchdown, and 14 of 20.
But that's just passing because he had.
Yeah, he did have some rushing yards as well, which I'm trying to find. 33 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So yeah, he was around 200 yards total. I guess that's the number I was coming with.
I mean, I was listening to First Take, and Stephen A. and Max Kellerman were talking about him. They were talking about all the quarterbacks and saying, like, this class has the potential to be the greatest quarterback draft class of all time.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's so many guys.
Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Bryce Young. No. Bryce Young's a college.
Yeah, I was going to say
who's the guy coming out of BYU?
It's Zach Wilson. Sorry. And then even
Trevor Lawrence.
The fifth Trevor Lawrence. 5th overall quarterback drafted was Kyle Trask, who isn't set up to be a superstar in the NFL, but he's sitting behind Tom Brady right now.
Yeah,
he's sitting behind the greatest football player that's ever walked this planet.
100%. So, I mean, Stephen A. I think he said Zach Wilson impressed him most, but I would disagree. I think Justin Fields looked the best
of
all of them by far.
Yep.
Obviously, we have a very, very small sample size. We got 2 quarters of Justin Fields, so
yeah,
can't really say much.
And the next week or two, we'll get a better idea because hopefully the rookies will play a little bit more.
I can't foresee them
I don't
starting
know.
Andy Dalton this year all season when Justin. I can
That's
see
a hard
a
one.
couple
Yeah.
games.
Andy Dalton is the veteran though. That's the thing, and he came in with the mindset of, okay, I'm going to start for this team. I'm going to play for this team. Justin Fields coming in, taking his spot is Andy Dalton's not going to be happy, and they have Nick Foles too.
Yeah.
Which is great for Justin Fields because Nick Foles is a great guy to mentor him and to teach him kind of the like how the NFL works. But I don't know. It's a hard one for me because I would love to see Fields play, and I think he has the talent to come out the gate as a top 10 quarterback in the league. But I don't know where that falls with Andy Dalton, like with him on the team, if that's going to stop his progression.
Yeah.
And at the same time, is it good for him to play the first year?
It can't hurt him to sit a year.
Yeah.
I think he's not going to play? I think he'll play. I think he'll get, whether that's an injury or the fans are just upset with how it is. Because, Chicago is a franchise that is widely looked at like one of the great NFL franchises.
Yeah.
And they've had terrible quarterbacks
They've had such bad luck.
Since like the 1980s, really.
Besides the Browns, now that they have Baker, they're probably, you would probably agree, they're probably the worst when it comes to luck with quarterbacks in recent years.
Yeah.
I don't know who else I would put up there.
They drafted Mitchell Trubisky over Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. But the fan base loves Justin Fields already. If you've watched the games or seen the videos, they're eating him up.
So. Oh yeah, he got a standing ovation when he came out on the field.
Yeah. I can't foresee them keeping him out long, especially with his ceiling. Like, we know who Andy Dalton and Nick Foles are.
Yeah, we know their ceilings.
They're not really going to be franchise guys, and the ceiling is super high for Justin Fields, in my opinion. I think that.
Well, I don't think we know it. I think that's the thing. We know where it's at for Andy Dalton and Nick Foles.
We don't know where. It's
and we have an idea of where Justin Fields is, but we know the very bottom, like his basement, is real close to their ceilings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
It's only a little lower than their ceiling, so they might play a little better if Justin's having a bad
He's
day.
He's a quarterback of the future. I think the style quarterback that he is.
He's,
I think.
Yeah, prototypical in a way, but he's kind of the perfect image of what a quarterback looks like in the NFL for now.
Yeah.
It's the Lamar Jackson. It's the guy that can scramble out of the pocket and chuck a ball 50 yards down the field on a sidearm pass.
I think his passing ability is much better than Lamar Jackson's. Obviously, there's probably not another running quarterback in the NFL that can do what Lamar can do. I think Lamar's an excellent quarterback, and I think he can throw the ball really well. But I just think Justin Fields is more accurate, and I don't know if that's a hot take or not. But
I don't know, but I think that's, as a non-Bears fan, that's terrifying. Someone that can move around like that, but has the lethality of the accuracy.
Yeah.
That's stuff of nightmares right there.
Chicago really just needs to find a running back that can stay healthy, and maybe one other high-level wide receiver. Their defense is excellent. They were a little bit questionable last year, but I think it's because their offense was so terrible, the defense couldn't get off the field.
And I don't know what their draft picks look like this upcoming year, but if they don't even have to tank this year. If they just do a little below 50%, they could probably get a really decent wide receiver in this upcoming class.
I feel like that's going to depend on who they play quarterback too.
Yeah, but there's some good wide receivers coming up this year. Ohio State has two of them.
Do they still have Allen Robinson?
I think so.
Okay. He's a wide receiver one.
He is.
I think he's
but
not like top 10. I wouldn't put him in.
You don't have a wide receiver two is the problem.
Yeah.
And you don't have a guy in the slot, and you don't have.
It's not like Dallas or Kansas City, where Dallas has Amari Cooper and I can't think of his name. CeeDee Lamb and Dallas.
They have a lot of guys.
Or Gallup, not Dallas.
Michael Gallup.
But, all right, we've been talking about Chicago for a while.
That's okay. It's Justin Fields talk. But on that note, we are getting close to the end of our time, so we are kind of shooting for 30 to 40 minutes. Just letting you guys know up front. If you like that, let us know. I guess leave good reviews, and we would appreciate it.
Yeah.
Give us feedback. We can go longer. We can maybe go shorter.
I can talk
but we could definitely go longer. So yeah, give us feedback on that. But thank you everyone for listening in. We really do appreciate your support. And we hope to get things off the ground from here.